6 reasons Baldur's Gate 3 is Game of the Year. Number 1. You can pick up the children and throw them off a ledge, or at your enemies. Finally, a better use for kids than child labour. Number 2. Everyone is hot and horny. Sometimes literally.
Gods, I want to ride you till you see stars.
Number 3. You can carry a dead midget in your inventory and use it during combat to hurl at your enemies. It may be morbid, but remember, this is what people who can't grow to 5 feet tall deserve. Number 4. Racism is okay.
You keep dangerous company.
What do you say fuck me for?
Number 5. You can play the entire game co-op. Of course, I haven't, because no one wants to play the game with me. Apart from my uncle, but he'd spend the entire game trying to romance me and not Shadowheart. Finally, number 6. It's Dungeons & Dragons, but you can play it on your own without being in a room with 5 other dudes that smells worse than a retirement home. Would you like a bonus one? Here, bonus. Number 7. BBC. Welcome to the life of Road Mannington, a human barbarian who I tried to make look like a roadman, but unfortunately North Face puffer jackets and Nike Air Maxes weren't available outfit choices. You also have to make a guardian, so I went for a cute dwarf lad, but I ended up making him look like a neo-Nazi. I wake up in an incubator like a premature baby when suddenly it opens up. Pro tip. Do not open incubators in the maternity ward. I learnt this the hard way. Anyway, I look around, trying to decipher where exactly I am, and I come to the only logical conclusion. This is Detroit. I find a pool of what looks like bee semen, so I try to touch it. But first, I have to roll a dice. Every decision in this game hinges on a dice roll, where you have to score above a specific number. I fail my first skill check, which is a sign of things to come, and the pool blows up. Imagine if everything in life was based on a dice roll. Clearly my dad would roll a 20 every time he had a stealth check, because I haven't seen him in years. I make my way through an anus to hear a voice call out for help. Old mate is laying in a chair looking like he's seen better days, but his brain is talking to me. I use a strength skill check to break his skull and release the brain, but I also use a dexterity roll skill check to neutralize the brain in case it turns on me. The ting then grows legs and tentacles and wants to keep traveling with us. What a cutie. Finally outside, I come across a green bitch who enters with an impressive, albeit completely pointless flip. Our minds start having a little chat because we apparently both have a mind flayer parasite in our heads, which is comforting to learn. Obviously, that means we're quite poorly, but I also forgot to moisturize my hands last night, so now I have dry skin. So ask yourself, who's really had the tougher week? Anyway, her name is Lae'zel, and she's your typical cold, aggressive female character who grew up without a dad that appears in every single piece of fantasy media. Of course, she's also great at fighting, which is good, because some imps come over and try to G-check us. It takes Road Mannington a little time to get used to this, because he's normally trying to roll man for their Air Maxes in Tower Hamlets, not fighting imps using an axe in hell. We win the combat encounter, and I then have to loot absolutely everything, because picking up pointless items as Bethesda has given me some kind of pointless item PTSD. Todd Howard taught me one day I might need a French baguette, or a broom, or a mug. You never know when it could come in handy. We find another pod, and inside there's a woman begging for help to get out. She looks pretty hot, so I decide to bet her life on me winning a strength skill check, as me ripping open this with my big muscles will surely have her texting me heart eye emojis. I rip it open, but we don't even catch her on the way down, so she just smashes her face into the ground. She also has a mind flare parasite in her head, but forget that, she may have a concussion after that fall. Anyway, she says thanks for letting her out, and then instantly gets a little heated with Lae'zel because of her race. Good on her for leaving me alone though. Clearly she doesn't see colour. Her name is Shadowheart, and she doesn't even offer me an over-the-barbarian outfit handy for saving her, which is rude. But anyway, the 4 of us continued on together to try and escape this terrible place. I come across another person in a pod, and just when I think this party is going to grow to 5, I pull a lever expecting to free her. It turns her into a mind flayer. I'd still hit it though. We find a few mind flayer mugging off some horny folk, where one of them tells us to connect the tentacles. There's a lot of tentacles in this game, which for some is arousing, but I can't help but think how everything must just sound like Squidward walking. Anyway, I connect the tenties and it causes this bitch to crash somewhere that looks a lot more familiar. I wake up on a beach, feeling like a refugee, and the ship is in pieces all over the place. I turn around to go in the water, as we need a fresh wash after all we just went through, but Road Mannington won't go any deeper than knee height. I guess he can't swim because he's black. Boxer shorts that he's wearing would realistically restrict movement. I find Shadowheart also washed up on the beach. We venture off together to fight some little brains, and I'm not sure if it's the same brains that we were friends with on the ship, but either way, they're dead now. My favourite thing about turn-based combat is everyone waits patiently while you plot your next move, and there's no takesies backsies. It's a very respectful way to fight an opponent. We continue looking for survivors from the crash when we find this lad who takes me from behind without consent and then puts a knife around my neck. We use a strength check to roll out and escape his grasp. A little tip for next time, big man, try using a chloroform rag instead of a knife to knock a us out first. It works for me every time. So this old mate was also on the ship, and what do you know, he also has this parasite in his head. Damn, I really felt unique and quirky with this thing slowly taking over my brain, but now it feels like everyone has one. It's just like when my best friend caught an STI, then suddenly a week later, my girlfriend caught the exact same STI. I mean, what are the chances? Anyway, Asterion is his name, and he's quite a cunning chap, and I'd also like to see him shirtless. I mean, I think he could really be a great asset in combat, so I asked him to join us. I'm sorry, I know this video is like more horny than usual, but it's just this game. It does something to you. We investigate the wreckage from the ship and find a mind flayer looking like Joel Miller after 18 holes of golf. I have the option to kill it, but first I want to have a chat because I feel bad for the big fella. Because of the parasite in my head, it begins to seduce me, and I feel an overwhelming attraction to his slimy purple head. Literally his head, not his other head. You dirty little dogs. It wants me to lean in for a kiss, but I try to resist it. All I have to do is roll a 5 or higher, where I even have a +1 bonus, so surely this can't go wrong. I roll a 3. We lean in for a passionate kiss and get hit with a game over screen. The head was literally so good, it killed me. I load back in and this time curb stomp the big man, although I was tempted to kiss him again. I can change him. So I come across a portal with a hand sticking out, and while it's tempting to pull a family-friendly prank like putting my balls in his hand, I decide to pull him through. Surprise, surprise, it's another smoking hot lad with a parasite infection. It's getting boring now. Why is everyone so hot and funny? Where's Amy Schumer when you need her? Gale joins the group because we're all just looking for a way to get this parasite out of our head. Yes, by the way, if you haven't noticed, I am committing a war crime by using a controller while I'm playing. You know what they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't teach your controller baby how to use a mouse and keyboard. On our nice walk through the lands, we stumble across a lad and a smaller lad having a heated debate when the small one starts getting a little mouthy towards our group. Those are some big words for a man who can't reach the kitchen cupboard without climbing on the counter. I scare them off using my barbarian and intimidation stats, which is insensitive and hurtful. I take a look around the place, which to me looks destroyed, but to a Syrian refugee looks like a lovely family home. So it's all about perspective. I notice a crack in the floor, so I use my humongous brain to detect that there must be some way I can break through it. I shoot a stone suspended above the crack, which totally didn't take me way too long to figure out. Underground, we come across a gaggle of bandits, so it's time for some more combat. Look, I want to preface this by saying I'm pretty good at some things in life. I can make a banging chicken Alfredo, I can ping a peach for a pass from midfield, and I can probably beat you in a 1v1 on Rust. I, however, am not what you would call competent at turn-based combat. There's more of a chance of a Minecraft YouTuber not being attracted to kids than there is of me ever being good at turn-based combat. I trap myself in the room by setting someone in the doorway. I accidentally press the wrong button multiple times and make myself skip turns. I put grease on my own party, making us all fall over. It was like watching Frank Lampard's tactical setup as Chelsea manager. Eventually, after a couple tries, I did just about win the encounter and travel to the camp where you can regain your health and status after a battle. Here, before you all cuddle each other to sleep, you can also chat to the characters, where you can drop some game if you're trying to romance them. Like here, when I ask Gale what's on his mind, a stone-cold line that has gotten many people laid over the years. I also chat to Shadowheart, but she's super judgy about the fact that I spoke to someone before her. Someone's jealous. Or just racist. Probably racist, given her disdain for Lae'zel. She's cute though. Back in the underground, I once again drop a tactical masterclass. You see, I unlock a secret room, and then lead us to a place that's completely full of traps. I then proceed to get every single party member killed by a trap. Genius. When we respawn, I choose a different path and end up in another room fighting a horde of mummies. Well, they're actually called entombed scribes, but I prefer to call them mummies, as they remind me of your mother. Once we finished off the mummies, I found myself opening up a tomb, and out popped old matey, just casually levitating. I'm not gonna lie, my bro's tomb absolutely stank. I mean, there was hundreds of years of farts built up in there, so I don't exactly blame him, but it doesn't take long to spray some cotton air freshener around the gaff if you're going to be having guests around. He's not evil, even though I just slaughtered his entire family outside the room. He simply just wants to ask me a couple of serious questions. I think the only serious question that needs to be asked though is, where is my man's skin routine? Someone get my boy some Nivea. Those wrinkles aren't going to solve themselves. After we've had a chat, he nips off, but says we'll be seeing him later. By that I hope he means in my bed. We leave the underground and venture forth until once again we find Lae'zel, who appears to be in a little bit of a predicament. As tempting as it was to leave her, I go for the morally correct thing and shoot her out of her cage. We fight off her imprisoners, and of course, she then has to beef with Shadowheart again. Women, try to be friends with each other. Difficulty level? Impossible. Lae'zel says we must make our way to the Druid Grove to find out where her people, the Githyanki, are, so we can get rid of this thing in our head. There's a bit of a power dynamic here, as she clearly thinks she's the leader, but little does she know, the USA has never had a woman president. Then again, they've only had one black one as well, so maybe Rhodes Mannington isn't exactly the best person to argue for leadership here. Anyway, when we arrive at the Druid Grove, they're getting attacked by goblins, so we step in to help them out. A huge battle like this is really fun, and even though I absolutely suck at the combat, I still had a great time. It's like my girlfriend says, "George, you're a grown man. When are you going to stop wearing your SpongeBob socks to bed?" Well, the answer is never. The same way, I'll never give up on combat in Baldur's Gate 3, but I will lower the difficulty pretty soon. The Druid Grove let us in, as thanks for our valiant efforts in helping them defeat the goblins. I take a look around the place, where I come across the Grove's pet squirrel. It bites me, so I act accordingly, and proceed to boot the little bastard top bins, like Steven Gerrard against Olympiakos in 2004. I also find a few cows, but I decide not to kick them, as I think my chances of winning a 1v1 against a cow are significantly lower than they are of beating a squirrel. In the Druid Grove, I find a man named Will, who spells it with a Y instead of an I, so you know his parents thought they were quirky. He also has a parasite in his head, because this thing seems to be more common than professional footballers getting away with sexual assault charges. So Will tells us about how he's been keeping sane by training these kids how to fight, and it's super wholesome. He really does seem like he has a connection with these kids. I then proceed to kill one of the kids. In my defense, I didn't think the game would actually let me do it, but that's why this game is the GOAT. Rather than the people of the Grove striking us down right here, right now, they keep their cool, arrest us, and put us in jail. Little did they know, Rhodes Mannington, being a roadman, has experience with jail. I mean, he's never been locked up, but his brother's best friend's, uncle's, niece's, dad's, half-cousin's, sister-in-law hamster was once in a cage at Pets at Home, so that's basically the same thing. They didn't make the cell alpha male proof, as I simply punch out one of the walls with one swing. I then sneak around back and get the rest of the crew to join me. I felt like I had outplayed the entire town, until I came across a statue that automatically shot anything that moved within a certain range. The entire squad gets shot, and I'm forced to just watch us lay here and bleed out. So I load back in to before I was acting like a white police officer in a black neighbourhood, and don't kill the kid this time round. I do, however, scam a kid though. You see, this little one was bragging to me about how lucky this ring was, so he gave it to me, and then asked me to choose heads or tails, just to prove how lucky it was. He then asked for it back, and I said no. He was cool with it, and said keep it, but then just asked me to take a look at his other rings. I said no. He said he can't afford food, and I once again said no, because big characters are built in the hardest of times. I'm giving you a good lesson, young man, or woman, or I don't know, fucking devil, whatever you are, I don't know what it is. So the next part contains some pretty heavy story spoilers, so we'll just skip over that for now, as you should experience it for yourself. Basically though, I'm off to a goblin camp to defeat 3 of their leaders, in hopes it will stop them from continually attacking the Druid Grove. On our way there, I stumbled across literally the cutest NPC I've ever seen. If you look like this, please slide into my DMs. She's also pretty cute too, I guess. I unfortunately choose the wrong dialogue options and are forced to fight them. I'll never forget this man or his bald head that had enough space to land a VTOL warjet on it. We stumbled into this cute little village, but the goblins already own this territory. Luckily, Rhodes Mannington is pretty scary, so he's like, yo, big man, leave us alone, innit? And the goblins are like, yeah, safe, no worries, G, just don't scratch the leather on my sofa. Free to roam the village, I go around picking up every piece of loot I can possibly find, until I hear some weird noises coming from a barn. Whatever it is, it sounds large, so I prepare myself for a battle, as we bust in, only to see an ogre giving another ogre devious backshots. Jesus Christ, I said where is Amy Schumer, and what do you know, here she is. Thank the Lord. So I laugh at how small the ogre's manhood is, which makes him sensitive and insecure, so he runs home to have a cry. There's also a mangled corpse in here, so I don't know if they were getting off on this, but hey, whatever you gotta do to get it up, I don't judge. I once had a girl say she wanted to get kinky with me, but neither of us had any equipment, so we had to improvise. There we were rummaging about the gaff for things to use, when I come across a pair of Nintendo Wii controller safety straps. It felt a bit disgusting, given I was playing Wii Sports with her nan about 2 hours before this, but it surprisingly worked pretty well. Further up in the village, I find a few goblins tormenting this poor midget, as they've tied him to a windmill. I'm not one to just stand by while others get bullied, while others get singled out because of who they are, the way they act, or their beliefs. I'm the guy that steps in, puts an end to all this evil and negative energy. Why do I do this? Because I want to be the one to speed up the windmill and send the little geezer flying. Right, so we finally get to the Goblino Campo. I've been working on my Spanish. And I managed to finesse my way in by telling Big Man at the main doors I'll slip him a cheeky 10 out of 10 foot score on WikiFeet. Once inside, the goblins don't really seem like bad folk. They're just here to have a good time. They have a barred prisoner forced to sing songs, there's plenty of drinks to go around, they're all having a laugh with their mates. There's something to admire here. Unfortunately, the same trick doesn't work on the bouncers at the door guarding the prison entrance, so we need to find another way in. I go above the prison where I notice a wall lacking some structural integrity. I try to attack it, but a boatload of passed out and drunk goblins wake up to the noise. My immersion was immediately ruined, because anyone who has been around anyone that's passed out from drinking too much literally wouldn't wake up in a war zone. Me and my mates would always play pranks on the one guy who took it too far and would never wake up the next morning. We'd draw on his face, balance household items on his head, dip his hands in water so he'd wet himself, and pass sacks in his mouth and get kinda turned on from it. Just the normal teenage guy stuff. I defeat the drunk goblins and then have to figure out how to get past this wall. I have the bright idea of using one of Gale's abilities, the wind push, but forget to move my party out of the way beforehand, so I end up knocking them all over with the wind push. This is why I load the difficulty. Once inside, I snuck around the place and actually ended up spending 3 hours in here alone. This game is insane. I'll shorten that down by telling you how I killed all 3 of the goblin leaders. Minthara I actually plotted to work with and then stab in the back later on in the game. But I actually completely ballsed it all up by getting in a fight near her so then she'd come over to have a scrap with us. I ended up making it past this fight and killing her by the crack of my cheeks. Draw Ragslin I simply baited near the edge and then proceeded to push him into the spider's nest so they ate him alive. Then as far as the other leader, I don't really know to be honest. I finished with Draw Ragslin and I had no one else to kill. I must have killed him and then didn't even notice. I'm not really sure what happened. With them all defeated, I made my way out to find the entire goblin camp aggroed on me. I swiftly quit the game and then left this as a problem for future George to solve. Fuck, I've got to do that next time I play the game. I know I say it pretty much every video, but I truly do love you all. YouTube has been such a shit show for me recently and I don't really know what's going on. So anyone that's here that watches these videos, just know that I really do truly appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. I love you all, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.